community do you design then? Most of the jobs, as I mentioned, that are projected for your community are not high-end jobs. But you do have a lot of folks with bachelor's degrees and certificates and degrees in general. So there's opportunity for growth. Lots that we can build on in Palm Beach County. The nature, though, of tomorrow is going to change, and particularly from the prosperity perspective. How we create wealth, how we distribute it, how we apply it to opportunities is going to be radically different. And they're all interconnected. You can't take one of these and say, no, technology is not going to be. You can't design, for example, a retail opportunity and say, let's not think about automation today, or let's not think about globalization, or let's not think about where people are going to live. They are all part of the experience. Yes, it's fun to talk about edutainment, it's fun to talk about products and consumer choices, but there is nothing you can erase from the conversation if you really want to make a robust conversation about the future. Some ways to think about this, and I'm going to transition to you in just a minute, just in case you need. Some ways to think about this. There are different ways to view your county, or our state for that matter, depending on if growth continues at our historic rates, or if it drops. I mean, most of our models are built on construction, right? We talk about tourism, agriculture, and construction as our base industries for a reason. By the way, the fourth industry that often gets overlooked, and it is an opportunity across the state, is military. Since the 50s, nothing has driven our economy more than that, but we forget that conversation. Now, there's some positive news that I'm going to end with in all of these statements, just in case those of us who are optimists just need a shot in the arm on something like that. But there are some things that we have to consider. So if growth changes, that changes the model, right? It changes the model not only for the number of need, for the percent of need that we have to satisfy, but the value that those folks could potentially generate. But what if we have a high growth situation, but no jobs? In a flat world where technology allows you to work anywhere, or nowhere for that matter, we have to start thinking about that. What if Florida becomes the destination for people who want to live in a great place, but not necessarily the destination for business? Your business might be located overseas. There's no barrier to that in a lot of parts, right? Or your business might be in another state. Maybe you don't view your work as economic development. I do think most of you probably do. But if you can grow without jobs, as we can today, that is a critical question. How do you preserve what we want to preserve? Experiences, vibrancy, sustainability, if we don't have the means and capacity. Another series of questions to think about. What if the disruptions aren't as bad as I think? You know, the disruptions are actually low, the adoption rate for artificial intelligence or automation, the costs are too high, we can't take it to scale, whatever. But we're planning on some of those opportunities. Are we ready for that? Or what if consumer preferences, the things that people want, or need for that matter, evolve? Some of the opportunities that I think actually hold some promise, medical bots, devices that actually help us, right? We are already engaging with, for those of you who are caregivers, not just of children, but particularly of parents, the opportunity for devices to assist in that process, right, is already out there. And literally there will be other things, robotic nurses or tools and devices that create some opportunities. So there are disruptions that are going to be positive in nature. And maybe ways that we can address a community that has lost more health professionals than it should. I don't know. Those are out there. Do those impact retail? Yeah. In one way or another, if you think about the folks that either have jobs or don't have jobs, if you have high growth or no growth, if disruption is going to provide differences of experiences and opportunities or not, those are all going to provide radically different futures. There is not a one-size-fits-all for every model. So as you consider things, you've got to consider how much it takes also to move into the opportunities, the investments. Is it easy to get into? Is it very expensive to build a mall? Let's just take as an example. Should you or should you not? Should you just build it virtually? Should you have a non-human interactive experience? I don't know. I probably have my preferences, but in the policy work that each of you do and I do, and yeah, we're working in policy. we can't necessarily let our biases determine all the futures. We've just got to have all the right questions on the tables. There are a lot of challenges that we've got to deal with. And there are a lot of hidden secrets that maybe help me get out of bed every morning. For example, maybe we haven't lost as many information jobs. Maybe we just recoded them under a different NAICS code, which is exactly what happens in a state that doesn't want to reveal that you have, an extra 100 computer programmers in your building. So you call them maybe manufacturing, or you call them defense workers because of the contracts that they have. Or maybe you do have health professionals, but you don't want somebody to take them from you, and you are hiding them behind some other code of your industry. I actually don't think that the numbers are telling the story completely. There are those stories that do matter, and that is that Florida is moving, in large part forward, not with everybody yet, but we have the potential of doing that. And it is doing it in context with the rest of the world. And the experiences that we're going to be talking about for the rest of the day have to do with not just change and disruption and disturbances, but about preferences and choices and design. And in one of those areas, it's going to be about retail. So that's why many of you came here. Happy to cover any of these in a little while. I don't want to necessarily go into question and answer. We're going to flood you with a little more information, some of it data, some of it context. I hope that you're still okay. If you need to stand up and stretch, don't forget that there's coffee right there, there's restrooms. This is not the time for all of you to leave all at once, though, because I think you're going to want to stay for the next person. Dale Scott, who I just had a chance to meet, I guess he described himself as a general contractor, but he's really the director at Hawkins Construction and makes things happen. He's got 50 years of experience in construction and real estate. He's a who's who in commercial real estate. And I think you're going to hear some of the perspectives that he brings to that. It's not just a job for him, it's also a way of life in terms of his volunteer experience. He's been in leadership positions with the International Council of Shopping Centers and Center Build. And he's going to talk about the fun stuff, like the apocalypse or not, or the renaissance that lays ahead. Dale, did I properly position that in one session? All right, so before he comes up, I'm going to get the slides up. We're going to transition the microphones and all these things. Here's what I want you to do for the next 2 or 3 minutes. You probably know the people at your table, but if you don't, this is a great time. Not necessarily to leave the room, just reach across the table, introduce yourself to anybody you don't know. You know everybody at your table, why don't you sit with them? You already know them. Find somebody else. Or reach behind you and meet somebody else. You've got about 35 seconds to find out who you're around. Thank you. Take a number, get a hall pass, and you need to go to the restroom. Wake yourself up. I know I get tons of compliments here. We'll take a full break right after Dale's presentation.